Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So finally I can answer the question, is Baron Zemo or Absorbing Man, well mainly Absorbing Man, getting tuned down or balanced and stuff like that, because we do have the full information. And full disclosure, both of them are getting changed, and let's just break it down. So on attack, Absorbing Man has some specific targets to hit in the current meta, Path 9 and AW, as well as some annoying cosmic defenders such as Terex, Null, and Annihilus. So far, we're happy seeing players use Absorbing Man very effectively in those matchups, and are happy where he has landed as an attacker. On defense, Absorbing Man had the goal of being a difficult defender, looking for specific RPG counters, in addition to mastering and punishing his special attacks with your own heavy. So far, we're seeing that Absorbing Man has made a strong impact in the current defender meta. In Battlegrounds, we're currently satisfied with his performance as a defender, as his ban rate and defensive win rate are in a healthy and expected spot. While Absorbing Man's defensive win rate started off high in release in comparison to strong defenders who benefit from defensive tactics, we're seeing it trend down over time as more players are becoming familiar with the playstyle needed to counter him. But they are changing him, and there is a very simple explanation to what they are changing. Basically, his regen will not automatically trigger at the start of the fight, and that is the only meaningful change to him. Without reading all of this wall, it's basically so you can kind of chip him down better if in case you get stuck against him. Potency of the regen is not changed, and neither are, the triggers for the regen. When Absorbing Man consumes Morph Charge, he gains non-stacking regeneration, passive healing 10 to 30% of his missing health over 12 seconds. As a defender, this effect also triggers whenever Absorbing Man enters or refreshes any form. And that counted him entering his first form. So that is what they're changing. He's still going to be a tough defender. In Battlegrounds, effectively, he's not going to change as a defender, because that regen that you get at the start of the match, in the first match, whilst he has no missing health, basically does nothing. It's just that in Alliance War, when you enter a fight against an Absorbing Man that has 15% health, he doesn't automatically massively start regenerating. So, as far as the changes go to Absorbing Man, I'm perfectly fine with it. I never thought that he is, particularly broken and busted defender. He's just one of those defenders where you do want to have an RPG counter too. Not unlike, your Korgs and Dominos and whatnot. So, overall, that's fine. So, I know that, there are going to be, they are nerfing Absorbing and something like that. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. The change is, literally only when you're going up against Absorbing Man for second, third, fourth, or fifth fight, and that's, when he's slightly easier to defeat. In Battlegrounds and Alliance War, in most cases, as a defender, he effectively remains unchanged as far as I'm aware, and as far as I can conclude from this. And as an attacker, he remains unchanged as well, and his regen in general is basically the same. So, as far as this balancing goes, to me, largely, it kind of seems pretty much unnecessary, but, fair enough. Can kind of see where they are going with it. And yeah, our hope is that this will lower cases where attackers give up multiple attack bonuses to Absorbing Man, while still encouraging players to move away from using Red Hulk against him to use Void more. It's oddly specific there. But yeah, I don't think they mentioned. So here it says 10 to 30% of his missing health. I actually want to check on how that regen is classified right now. Ooh, no, wait. Yeah, no, it's still 10 to 30. So yeah. So they did not sneak one past that. That regen is going to be exactly the same. It just will not trigger at the very start of the fight. So that's fine. That is perfectly fine. Absorbing Man's fine. You can rank him up. You can, gem him, sig him. He's safe. Now, Baron Zemo is, well, by the looks of it anyways. Baron Zemo is doing a good job on hitting his attribute and meta goals on attack. There will be more complex situation with Baron Zemo though. Because something about this change really does not make sense to me, and it kind of stinks if you think about it. Okay, so Baron Zemo is doing a good job of hitting his attribute and meta goals on attack. He's showing up as a viable attacker option. with either his bleeds or furies, especially against science champions with many debuffs and defense abilities. On defense, he's encouraging bleed resistance on attackers that fight him. His indefinite effects are the right level of terrifying, and his route is somewhere where you definitely don't want to be caught. Well, we're happy with the power level of Zemo in day-to-day content. He has two abilities that we're intended to be defensively focused, but that are heavily shaping his offensive identity too. His Fury gain from Purifier immunity, the armor up buffs that function as a cooldown for his cleanse passives. And what we want to preserve the strength of his Fury and cleanses while making sure Baron Zemo feels interactive to play as and against. So we want to adjust these abilities. We want these changes to feel natural or even beneficial in most fights. For the handful of existing matchups that are affected by the change in the direction, like Black Widow Clairvoyant, we still want him to feel like a strong attacking option. Right. So what they are changing. They are adding a 15 Fury cap, and this thing makes no sense. This 15 Fury cap makes absolutely no sense because in virtually any content, if Baron Zemo gets close to 15 Furies, you're just gonna get one shot. Pretty much immediately. Combination, okay, so Zemo gains a potent Fury buff each time his opponent purifies a debuff or is immune to an effect. These can stack and apply to all debuffs or effects, including those from any quest nodes. This combination can leave open some interactions that are either too punishing to play against when he's a quest defender, or intensive play that breaks the core flow as an attacker. We'll be looking into safeguard against some of those potential combinations while still keeping this ability as a major damage source for him, with the early direction being to add a simple cap around 15 Furies, since most of his matchups involve him using Fury as soon as he gains it. This ability should still feel quite strong, which is our goal. And here's the problem. If Zemo claps you with 10 Furies, dead. So adding cap of 15 does not, remedy any kind of situation of him on defensively. The only times this will matter is realistically if you're facing a massive Nick Fury. That's pretty much it. Because Nick Fury purifies all of his debuffs and he enters second life. Currently, if you are using Baron Zemo, let's say you have 30 bleeds on Nick Fury, he purifies them, you get 30 Furies. Next time you hit Nick Fury, he's basically dead immediately. So it's not that big of a deal, I don't think. It doesn't make that big of an impact with having that cap at 15. But I also do not quite buy the text above here where they are wishing to kind of like reduce his defensive threat due to those. No. If they put a cap of 15, then you're still dead. No way around it. Anyways. Cleanse passives and armor buff. And this is probably going to be more impactful change. This definitely will ruin several matchups that Zemo, was busted for right now. When Baron Zemo uses all his cleanse passives, he roots his opponent and he gains an armor buff. As soon as that buff is no longer present, either due to expiring or being removed, he regains his cleanse passives and can start the loop again. Because regaining cleanse passives is tied to armor buff, fights with effects like armor break and nullify have drastically different pacing compared to fights in which Zemo has to wait full 20 seconds. We want to make the cycle of his cleanse feel more consistent, preserve this cleanse uptime to counter debuffs, and prevent him from too quickly being able to put his opponent back into root. To accomplish this, we're looking into changing the buff to a passive and reducing its duration. So his cleanse is more consistently back after 15 seconds. That idea of it being changed to a passive, we're also exploring what type of defensive effect best helps Zemo as a skill attacker. So they're taking away that buff, and this does ruin a ton of interactions, like against Black Widow Clairvoyant, and like a ton of things that we have seen showcased on YouTube already, because, if you go up against Nullify matchups, you could benefit from quite greatly, and that was kind of like one of the more noticed lures and attractions to that champion, But in the right matchup, you could spam a ton of roots and you could, you know, kind of supercharge his damage, which, exists in a ton of cases in this game. Like you saw with Titania, with some weird interactions I recently uploaded, and, there's a ton of them. And this will effectively make it impossible in almost all the situations because Nullify obviously does not affect passives, and so many of those interactions now are being disrupted. Now, having that cooldown of 15 seconds is better for him in a generic or relatively low debuff matchup, I would say. But overall, this kind of stinks a bit. It really does. Because it does take away a ton of fights where he could kind of like go crazy. Ultimately, I still think he's obviously going to be a good champion. And we don't know exactly how those changes are going to look like still. Because it seems that they haven't kind of settled on exact change to him. But yeah, there is no doubt about it. If Absorbing Man's tune-up would hardly be called a nerf, maybe tiny defensive nerf, but effectively relevant change, then Baron Zemo's change is, I think, the first official nerf that we are getting. Baron Zemo having his armor buff go to passive, without a doubt, does ruin a ton of fights for him. Fury cap at 15 wins a tiny bit against like Nick Fury or something, but this one, I mean, both of them. So objectively, yes. That Fury cap obviously, changes nothing when you fight against him as a defender. It does slow you down and hinder you in some specific matchups. And the armor buff hinders you, armor buff change to passive hinders you much more. So without a question, this is a nerf. There's no way around it. This is a nerf to Baron Zemo. And on top of it, we don't get any extra buffs either. Seems like Kabam has completely abandoned their buff program because I believe this is like second month in a row where we're not getting any extra buffs. So there's no extra buffs at all, and the timeline is that in June update and June and July updates, Absorbing Man and Baron Zemo's changes hit the CCP beta for members to dig into and create content with. In August, we will see the new kits in live. Yeah. So unfortunately, not the great. I mean, it's a bit of a relief that Absorbing Man didn't get touched more. It is kind of annoying that Baron Zemo does get nerfed. And again, that is a nerf. That is a reduction on his, good matchups, which without a doubt is consequential. And yeah, no extra buffs. So this is kind of like a crappy post. Yeah. Let me know what you guys think. Anyways, I'm gonna catch you guys soon. Bye. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about